Look, I'll admit this up front. I'm not trying to exclude anyone, but this is a video made for Waiguoren like me. I'm going to say things that are pretty obvious to Chinese people. In fact, if you're Chinese, just skip this video entirely, unless you just want to hear for 5 minutes somebody saying how obsessed he is with your culture. I'm a film nerd, I'm a China nerd, I'm a Waiguoren. I'm peering in from the outside. 25 years ago, I got sucked in by how random and goofy and cool kung fu films could be. You really didn't know what was coming next. Sometimes it was pure awesomeness. And sometimes it was... So eventually I moved to China, and my interest in Chinese film, the good, the bad, and the baffling, grew into a full-time obsession. It quickly became clear that there were a lot of gaps to fill in: folklore, literature, history. And there was really no guidebook for outsiders. Nobody can know everything. But as Westerners, we have certain advantages or disadvantages because our culture has become ubiquitous. If you say Robin Hood, people around the world know what you mean. Mickey Mouse, Martin Luther King, but nobody says, oh yeah, he's the Spanish Wong Fei Hong, or the Jewish Ne Zha, the Italian Liang Shanbo and Zhu Yingtai. And that's kind of good. I mean, Romeo and Juliet really have nothing in common with Liang Shanbo and Zhu Yingtai, besides being rich and in love and dead at the end. But I digress. What I want to say is, if you want to demystify Chinese cinema and learn all the iconography that you need to digest it, good luck. China's really big. It's really old. But thankfully, China's also obsessed with finding the middle ground, and so they often go back to the same wells. And I'm hoping through a series of videos to dive into some of those wells and to provide an easy framework for non-Chinese folks like myself. A French actress, I think it was Juliette Binoche, once described French cinema as an ant colony making movies about an ant colony. That's pretty true criticism of most countries' movie industries. But I would cut China a break on that for a couple of reasons. Number one, they got a really, really big ant colony. There's plenty of material to work with. Secondly, if we're talking about the 60s and 70s, which is my favorite era of Chinese film, the Chinese filmmakers had pretty good reasons for navel-gazing. In 1966, Chairman Mao had declared war on the four olds: old customs, old culture, old habits, old ideas. And this resulted in a widespread destruction of a lot of what was beautiful and praiseworthy in China. Temples and artifacts were destroyed, operas were banned, etc. Oh yeah! Thankfully, they only succeeded part way and things have resurged. But understandably, a lot of talented people fled the country at that time, pushing the diaspora out to Taiwan and Singapore, Malaysia, North America, and most importantly for this video, Hong Kong. One family who moved out of the People's Republic was four brothers: Runje, Runmei, Runde, and Runrun Shaw. They started a studio in Singapore, which evolved into the Hong Kong-based Shaw Brothers Productions, under the youngest Shaw brother, Runrun. In the 50s, the Shaw brothers became popular by filming essentially just recorded Chinese operas. People lapped it up because of the cultural drought brought about by the communists coming into power in 1949. This evolved. They added pop elements to Anhui folk songs, and they created a very lucrative genre of movie musical, the Huangmei Diao. The most well-known of these is The Love Etern, a musical retelling of the Liang Shanbo and Zhu Yingtai romance. People saw this movie dozens of times, especially in Taiwan. They were hungry for the retelling of a well-known story in big-budget format. The closest thing we have in the West is maybe the 1970s Superman film, or possibly Lord of the Rings, where you know what's going to happen, but you want someone to validate it by putting it on screen and with the glory it deserves. Well, The Love Etern definitely did that. So in Hong Kong, the Shaws made musical versions of Chinese classics to reach out to the people who had fled the mainland. We got Dream of the Red Chamber, A Maid from Heaven, Yang Gui Fei, Journey to the West in multiple movies starring Yue Hua. This exuberant retelling of old tales continued as action cinema slowly took over. So if you dive into the Shaw Brothers and the Golden Harvest films and even the Hong Kong New Wave of the 1980s, you're going to find some stories repeated, although they're not always called out by name because, well, when the audience sees Batman on screen, they know it's Batman. They don't need to explain how his parents died every single time. So really, really briefly, here are a few things that you're going to come across again and again. The evil monk Pai Mei betrayed Shaolin Temple to the Qing dynasty because the Qings were worried about people who could fight without even using weapons. A few kung fu masters escaped and spread their knowledge south through Guangdong. This led to the 10 Tigers of Guangdong and eventually many other heroes.
黄飞鸿
Speaking of which, the son of one of the 10 tigers, Wang Feiheng, was a wealthy, honorable pacifist who defended China against Western colonialists, the Taiping fundamentalist crazies, and any other threat in the 1800s. More movies have been made about Wang Feiheng than possibly any other character in history.
哪吒
Nejia is this Jesus-like super baby born out of a flower who rides flaming roller skates.
方世玉
Feng Saiyuk and his buddies also fought against the Qing. I'll do another video on him. The stories are too crazy and the movies are too good to skip Feng Saiyuk.
乾隆皇帝
The Emperor Qianlong, who was allegedly an ethnic Han, snuck onto the throne of the evil because they're a minority Qing dynasty, wandered around southern China incognito. He inspired some great films and some others that you would need a different sense of humor than mine to love.
包拯
The wise, dark-complexioned Judge Bao Jung and his many deputies show up a lot, having roots in 19th century adventure novels, along the lines of Robin Hood. A lot of this stuff comes from a vast catalog of literature, both high class and of the airport variety, from the past 1,000 years. Many stories were built up during the Mongolian Yuan dynasty, in the form of plays and operas. But don't sleep on Gulong and Jin Yong, the two Hong Kong novelists who made kung fu novels a huge hit in the 20th century. Without them, there would be no Hong Kong cinema.
四大名著
Dozens of movies have been built on the four great novels of China: Journey to the West, Dream of the Red Chamber, Water Margin, and Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I'll skip the first two here, because if you're watching a movie about a magic monkey, you already know it's going to have some weird stuff in it. And Red Chamber isn't really action movie material, despite there being many adaptations to film. But Water Margin, or All Men Are Brothers, is a novel about 108 outlaws that spawned dozens of films, and even its own spin-off classic novel, the racy family epic Jingping Mei. Most famous from Water Margin is Wu Song, the hard-drinking, tiger-killing guy who slaughters all of the characters in Jingping Mei. Then there's Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It's an epic the size that no short video could possibly handle. It spawned dozens of films. Some of them are great, some are mediocre, some are really awful. If you've got time to read a 2,000-page novel, you really couldn't do better than read the full Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It contains hundreds of amazing stories about clever strategies and brave adventures. It's like the love child of J.R.R. Tolkien and the Bible, with a healthy dose of trickster lore thrown in. Beyond all this, some Wikipedia reading about the Qin Dynasty, the Taiping Rebellion, the Qing Dynasty, the Yellow Turbans, the Republic of China period, really the Qing Dynasty in general wouldn't hurt. The take-home message is this: if you want to peer underneath the hood of Chinese cinema and figure out what's going on, good luck. Buckle up for a lot of reading, but it's definitely worth it.